Welcome to the Journey Mindfulness Podcast. I'm your host, James O'Neill, and today's a little bit different of a kind of format. I'm going to be sharing some thoughts on, the shift for those of you who are sensitive to energy and kind of some of the changes that are happening right now, and how to cultivate inspiration and guidance as you navigate this time. So, you may find yourself like I sometimes find myself in perhaps in this current moment of, feeling slightly stuck or not being able to work through some things, or some things are coming up for you that might put you in fight or flight. Now, that is completely normal. That happens to everybody. But when it does, we're not always taught, right? Like how do you work through that? How do you get out of fight or flight and start to move your life in a direction that feels good to you? So hopefully you get some inspiration, some tips and tools on how to handle that. I'm also going to go through some of the steps of Bashar's 5-step formula for creating the life that you want to live, because I think it's very helpful, and it also incorporates some of the sort of Buddhist psychology of MP and mindfulness as well. So getting into it, there's moments in life where you can get stuck, burnt out, snake bit, get your teeth kicked in, which sounds really bad, or just run over or run down by life. We might feel stuck. We hit a fork in the road and feel like we are walking in quicksand, and we don't always know what direction to turn towards or head in. And this can become quite scary and put you in a state of fight or flight. And when you are in that state, it is very challenging to shift out of it and put yourself in a place where you can start to make sense and think with calm and clarity. But if you find yourself in that place, and I would say that we all do at various points in life, the first thing that you need to do, and this sort of depends on your situation, but you need to get to a safe space, or as safe of a space and a sanctuary as you can find. So your physical environment will become very important, and hopefully you can find some place that you can get to if you're in a dangerous situation. But that's one of the first things you can do. The next thing is something that we all have with us at all times. It is the ultimate mobile tool, and that is the breath. And so I hear the term breath work more and more. Obviously in meditation, you are utilizing the breath as a tool. But breath work is one of the things that you can do to get out of fight or flight. So it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which can help calm you down. And so it becomes very important. There are a number of different techniques, right, to kind of access the breath and utilize that in the way. The breath being your connection with your mind and body, and being able to work with your nervous system. Some of the techniques that I jotted down here are box breathing, or tactical breathing for you law enforcement people. Now, this technique is, I'm just going to go through a few different things and kind of just so you have an idea of the types of things that you can do when you're in the moment. But box or tactical breathing is one example. You can breathe in for 4 seconds, and then you hold the breath in for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 4 seconds. And then when your lungs are empty, you hold for another 4 seconds. And you can customize the time depending on your own lung capacity and what feels right for you. But the image of a box can be helpful, where you breathe in, hold, breathe out, and then hold. And that can get you out of fight or flight. So for soldiers in combat and stuff like that, that's something that they have found helpful. And another technique that you may or may not like, some of these you might find are very helpful, and some you may not. This is not one that I particularly enjoy doing. However, many people find it helpful, so I will share it. But it's called 4-7-8 breathing, and it's when you breathe in, so you inhale for 4 seconds, and then as you inhale for the 4, the next thing you do is you hold the breath in for 7 seconds. So breathe in for 4, hold the breath for 7 seconds, and then on your exhale, you exhale for 8 seconds. So it's a longer exhale. So it's a short duration on the in-breath, 4 seconds, hold for 7, and exhale for 8 seconds. Now, another technique I'll share, and this is one that's pretty quick, but it is inducing a physiological sigh. And by that, I mean, so you would breathe in just like you would a natural sigh, but you're going to do this artificially. But you breathe in until you can't breathe in anymore. So, and then when you get to the very end of your inhale, you're going to breathe in again. So it's going to be a smaller breath, smaller inhale, but breathe in. And then exhale. And that physiological sigh is very quick, but very effective at activating your parasympathetic nervous system, which is really the easiest way to think of this in mindfulness is the brake pedal. When you get stressed out, the gas pedal kicks on, and you want to access the brake pedal to help yourself calm down and get to a more creative and calm and thinking space. Some other tips that I thought I would share that I find helpful is just very simple mantras that you can use. You can say these silently to yourself, but one of them is just imagine breathing in. So breathing in, I'm peaceful. Breathing out, I'm calm. Breathing in, I'm peaceful. Breathing out, I'm calm. Or another one is, I breathe in the peace of the present, and on the exhale, I breathe out the worry of the future. So I breathe in the peace of the present, I breathe out the worry of the future. I breathe in the peace of the present, and I breathe out the worry of the future. And what else? Do I have another one here? Ooh, okay. I breathe in the joy of the present moment, and exhaling, I breathe out the pain of the past. So I breathe in the joy of the present moment, and exhaling, I breathe out the pain of the past. I breathe in the joy of the present moment, and I breathe out the pain of the past. Now, you do these enough times, it's going to get you out of fight or flight. It's going to put you in a more calm, creative, imaginative space where you can start to contemplate where you are in this moment and how to perhaps move forward in a way that feels in alignment with you. So once you are safe and you have shifted from fight or flight and have come into the present moment, you can begin to do some real work. So this is very important because you want to be able to put yourself into this space where you can accomplish something. Like, it's not enough to just listen to a meditation app for 5 minutes and then forget about it and then get back into autopilot, which is something I see a lot of people do. You know, they check off a box and like, oh, I meditated, like I did something helpful today, which it's not that you didn't, but you're also trying to examine your life and to see, where you are with things, to give yourself some real and honest feedback about, how you're doing moment by moment. So setting all fear aside, if you can do that, being intentional about that. And one way to work with energy is to be intentional. That is how that is done. So you purposefully and with your conscious intention, you set aside fear, and then you embody an attitude of courage and compassion. So this is very important, and this is a big part of the MP mindfulness training for performance, is to embody the attribute that you want to have. Now, we're all going to face fear in some form or fashion. The only way to face fear is to do that with an attitude of courage. So you have to learn how to embody that. What does that look like? For some, it's taking in the strength and power of a mountain. For some, it's maybe thinking of a lion, right? Like the courage of a lion. You could almost do that in a comical way, with the Wizard of Oz. You can use certain tips and tricks like that to help you visualize what it is that you need. And then once you have embodied courage and compassion, and you are working skillfully with your fear and setting that aside, this is where a lot of people fight me on this, but this is the way to do it. And it's to grab a pen and a paper or a journal and sit down with yourself. And this is the space where you can do some real damage in terms of planning, being very intentional about planning what it is that you would like to accomplish, and starting to brainstorm what it is that you want out of life. So to be very intentional about this and asking yourself some very deep soul questions. What gives you joy? I'll say it again, and you want to spend some actual time with this. What gives you joy? What excites you? If you woke up in the morning and couldn't wait to jump out of bed, to go to work, to do your job, or to create something, what would that be? What would you be doing? I'm sure we've all had that experience where the alarm goes off and it's like, oh my God, I gotta go to this job. I dread this. There is an aversion to going to this work, or being on the hamster wheel, or I don't know, making someone else a lot of money, off of your talents. What would make you happy? What would you be fulfilled doing? What would align with you and your heart? Those are very deep questions to ask, and ones that require a lot of heartfelt time to do. Ask your soul, your higher self. Be creative. Use your imagination. We sort of turn off our imagination. A beautiful little person not too long ago said, you don't use your imagination to me. And I took that to heart because she's probably true, right? Like, it's probably right. I probably don't use my imagination as well as I could. And we all could use our imagination a little bit more. Dream big. One of the big aspects of the mindfulness based stress reduction is to be deliberate in thinking outside the box, because so often we limit ourselves in how we think. Like, well, if I don't like this job, I guess I have to get another job and be an employee somewhere else. Okay, maybe, but what if there's so many examples of people, but what if you, instead of working for someone else, created your own job where you did what you loved and you reaped the rewards of that? Now, that might be scary for some of you, but for others, that might be entirely exciting. And so perhaps that's a good segue to get into Bashar's excitement formula, which I find to be very helpful as a guide to living the life that you want. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Bashar's name, it just means the messenger, but it's Bashar is channeled by a film director named Daryl Anka, who is a fascinating person, but you can easily Google him. For those that may be skeptical of channels, you probably should be, but there are some very good ones, and I think Bashar is one of them. So judge the material. Listen to what he says, and if it resonates with you, it certainly resonates with me, which is why I'm sharing it, but perhaps you can use this as a guide for yourself. So in the 5 steps, the first step is to act on your excitement, your passion, whatever is most exciting to you in the moment, and to do this every moment that you can. Now, I want to impress upon you, so you got to sort of know what your passion is, but he says to act on your excitement. So you must be clear and know what your excitement is, which is why brainstorming, using your imagination, and being creative with pen and paper, which is important because it's tangible. Meditating and writing, it's so important. Then you must take action, for it is action that is the language of the universe, and lets the universe know that you are serious about your intentions, and opens the door to synchronicity. Synchronicity is the magic of life. Carl Jung talks a lot about it. Paulo Coelho, the famous Brazilian author, writes in his book, The Alchemist. He has many very good books, but in The Alchemist, which is really popular among NBA players in the last few years, which is wonderful. It's one of my favorite books. But one of the quotes from The Alchemist that resonates most deeply with people is, "And when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it." Synchronicity and flow is the magic of life. And as another author, I believe she's a psychologist, Dr. Andrea Goglin, writes, synchronicity occurs at the intersection of your awareness, response, perspective, and action. So I'll read that again because I think it's important. Synchronicity occurs at the intersection of your awareness, response, perspective, and action. Awareness is another word for mindfulness, and we can never control things outside of us, but we can control our response to things. We can also choose our perspective, how we view things. And then, of course, action, putting all of those things into play. And when we do that, some things that you may, hear, oh, wow, what a really interesting coincidence. Perhaps they're not coincidences. I don't believe in coincidences. They are synchronicities. They are things that happen when you start to mix these ingredients together. And you will start to see results in your life, which are super interesting. Now, Bashar's second step is to do this, whatever this is, the action that you have chosen to take, to the best of your ability, and to take it as far as you can, as you can go, until you cannot take it any further. So this is a step that I've run into challenges with, and like anything else, you're going to run into challenges with things. So I would say that this could be tricky because what I've found is, like I said, you'll be tested. For example, it is very easy to be dissuaded when you are going through this and you take a risk, right? Like doing this podcast was a risk for me. I don't particularly enjoy talking. However, I realized that I enjoy doing this a little bit more, and it gives me a way to reach more people than one-on-one time with some of my awesome clients. But when you take a risk, you create something, and it's not always successful, right? Like someone may learn to become an artist or anything else. Your first creations are not perhaps your masterpieces. And so people are also going to be very judgy, right? So there's a lot of judgment in the world. Although with mindfulness, one of the fundamental things is to try to practice non-judgment of yourself and other people as a practice. But anytime you're taking a risk, you're going to find that people judge you and can criticize you, right? That there is no, when you're the man in the arena or the woman in the arena, like you are going to be judged. You have to know from a higher perspective that you're doing it, which means that you're awesome, right? Like you are taking the risk, and that is a courageous thing to do. Most people are afraid to do that. So you're ahead of the game. And oftentimes it's the, not every time, but sometimes it's the people closest to you that shoot you down or dissuade you, right, from taking risks. And oftentimes it comes from a place of love, that they want to protect you, right? Like, so taking risks can be scary. So it's just something to keep in mind when you go through this, right? So you take it as far as you can, and you know that you're going to face some challenges, and it's not always easy to kind of ascertain when it's the right time to stop or not. What you want to be careful of, and some of the pitfalls that I'll share here for me is sort of where I've erred in the past, is by creating something and perhaps it's not as well received as I thought, and then resenting those that did not receive it well. So essentially, when you create something and say people don't like it or it doesn't resonate like you think it should, one of the things that you can do that's a pitfall is to internalize that in a way. And if you say resent other people, like what I'm sharing that I did, it creates a block, and you're not going to be well received until you resolve your internal block. So the resentment, all these things, you are trying to bring awareness to, okay, where am I getting stuck? What's getting in the way? If I am carrying the emotion, so you try to be curious and investigate the emotion that is underneath that. It's, okay, resentment. Well, what is the belief then? If I'm feeling resentment or some type of anger, that's a protective type emotion. What is feeding that and preventing the success? And what I found was, and really sort of my life's work at this point, is to, when you whittle it down, so you start to almost become a scalpel with your attention and your awareness. But when you whittle it down, or when I whittled it down, it was really an issue of a self-defeating core belief and a lack of self-worth and worthiness. Some people call some form of this imposter syndrome. But ultimately, the emotion is fear of not being good enough, right? So you'll find that a lot of these themes and the challenges that we face in life come from something like that. They're relatively simple truths that are not actually true, because you are worthy. I'm worthy. You're worthy. Everyone is worthy. But you have to work towards, that's part of the operating system of reprogramming your mind to believe in your worthiness. Otherwise, you create the blocks, right? We create the walls that we essentially limit us and create greater suffering in our lives. Now, when I talk about fear, it's important. I want to say this, and I think I actually got this from Bashar too, but fear is a messenger. But as you learn to become intelligent with your emotions, it can be utilized, right? So you can learn from your fear. What is underneath the fear? Make it a game. One of the things in flow, like how do you find flow in high pressure situations? Well, one way is to make it a game. Have fun with it. Observe it from a detached perspective. And then be mindful when you revisit the situation and you zoom in on it. And do it with wisdom and skill. And perhaps a touch of humor. Humor is medicine. We don't always perhaps think of it in that way, but that's what it is. Comedians on some level help us heal collectively, when they have large audiences. So if you find yourself getting stuck, when in doubt, zoom out, listen and tune into your inner guidance. Tap in and feel your emotions. One way to do this is to feel into your heart, not your head. Your head can be misleading. Your body is more in tune with your subconscious mind and is not going to lie to you. So tuning into your heart and being honest with yourself, your own inner guidance system, and then being honest with yourself. And if something has come to completion and you are ready for something new, then doing that. So taking it as far as you can until you cannot take it any further, and then moving on to the next thing. And usually what you'll find is if you've mastered something, you are ready for something new. And if you haven't quite figured it out yet, you find new creative ways to do that. So moving along now to Bashar's third step, and that is to act on your excitement with no insistence on the outcome. Now, this is very much in alignment with Buddhist psychology, and also with M. Peake's sort of foundational attitude of non-attachment to outcome. And for some people in the world of performance, right, like that's one of those things where you have to like cross this threshold and you're like, well, wait a minute, I want to win. I want to, get a gold medal. And it's like, of course you want to do that. No one has the goal to set out to be mediocre and not do well. So people get confused on that because it is counterintuitive. But I'll break it down a little bit here. So you focus on your excitement, the fun, and the joy, and you immerse yourself fully in the present moment. And that's how you get into flow. A visualization that can be helpful with this is to imagine a mountain, and you're going to climb this mountain, and perhaps you see, the top of the mountain is there, right? The peak of the mountain is there, but it's covered by clouds usually. So you want to get to the top, but you might not be able to see it. Regardless, your focus on each step in the now moment as best you can. So you put your focus on the moment, right? Like it's going to take each step to get to the top. So intuitively, that if you are present and in flow, reaching the top of the mountain is a certainty. You'll get there. The discipline is not getting ahead of yourself and just focusing on the top of the mountain. If you focus on the top of the mountain, you are likely to misstep. Some of my friends that do trail running, which is, potentially fatal. It's a super exciting sport, but you have to be hyper focused when you're running on top of a mountain, because if you don't, you'll fall to your death. And while that's a risk that many thrill seekers are willing to do, it sort of highlights my point. Like that excitement, that fun of that is literally done one step at a time, and you have to be hyper focused. You do it well, you'll be successful. If you lose focus, you won't be successful. You won't get to the top. And so that's one way to visualize that. There's a number of examples to draw from. We're in football season now. Usually you have a favorite, and then there's an underdog. A lot of times the favorite, may feel like they've already accomplished enough. They've already got to the top of the mountain, and they don't pay attention or they don't prepare. And the underdog or the undersized fighter comes through, with an upset win. And this happens every year, right? Which is part of what makes sports fun. But you can extrapolate that to other things in life too, for a number of different examples. So stay focused. If you want to be victorious, stay focused on what gives you joy. And that is when synchronicity and magic can happen. Manifestation, if you will. Now, manifestation is somewhat considered esoteric, and this law of attraction even though it's probably like the least esoteric thing, because you focus on actually doing things in the now. Like, it's not about, in its truest sense, it's not about, willing it with your mind. A lot of people get that wrong. Just imagine I don't know, a mansion or a large bank account. It's just gonna like appear out of nowhere. You actually have to take action and to do things. But you have to focus your mind on what you want. And once you know that, you can take the steps to make that happen. So it's important to keep in mind that the outcome can be far greater than you could have imagined as well. So you run the risk of actually limiting yourself when you focus on a desired outcome. So, you want a certain thing or a certain outcome. What you want might be just smaller size in comparison to what, is possible. And so you don't want to limit yourself in that way. When it really get down to it, like, you have unlimited potential. There's any number of possibilities. So you don't want to put a cap on what your potential is. And that's important to know, but that's part of that concept. Again, there will be bumps in the road and challenges that you have to face. And in this day and time, it can be in our most challenging moments. So going back to the archetype of the hero's journey, right? So in the dark night of the soul, which quite honestly many people are probably going to be going through right now. And that's not a bad thing. In a sense, it means you're on the right path. So you don't go through that unless you're ready to take a giant leap. And it's not a fun place to be, which is why I'm sharing this, coming through my own dark night of the soul. But this is part of that hero's journey, right? Like, you have to conquer this. You have to conquer your fear and work with your shadow. It's when you're able to be in balance with the darkness and light that you become truly powerful. And you experience your greatest triumphs. So Bashar's fourth step is to choose to remain in a positive state regardless of what happens. Some of the higher wisdom that I've ever learned in my time as a perpetual student is that it is possible to smile at your pain and be appreciative and grateful. Now, that might upset some people. How could that possibly be with all of the terrible and dreadful things that happen in our experience, our traumas, the bad things that happen in this world? However, if you can be grateful for the experience and you can do that, you can propel yourself beyond your wildest imagination. And that is the attitude of a master. And if you are listening to this at this moment in time, you are listening to these words, then that is the path that you are on. So some of the most enlightened beings that I have encountered, who would perhaps never say they are that, haven't really endured the most pain. It's not like something that you wish on somebody, but at a soul level, when you experience that is you catapult yourself into the greatest growth. And so what Bashar is really saying is to stay positive and know that the pain is where the light comes in. That concept is universal among different traditions. So meet your pain and your suffering with a smile, and know that you can do that with laughter and appreciation. Take a step back and learn from the experience, because that is where your growth and your expansion and your wisdom comes from. And the only way to learn from any of it is to experience it in some way. So if you can manage that, then you are on your way. So again, it's not to make light of any suffering that you may, or trauma that you may have experienced in your life, but know that these hardships that we face are there to serve us in our growth and expansion. So that is very important. And if you can see that in a more neutral way and learn from it and learn to navigate the challenges, then you are you're doing a heck of a job. And at this point in life, at this time in the world and the universe, this is a very a big step. This is where it's all happening right now. You're in it, so congratulations. Now moving on to step number 5, and it's as follows. Constantly investigate your belief systems. Release and replace the unpreferred beliefs, fear-based beliefs, and the beliefs not in alignment with who you prefer to be. So I'll read that again. Step number 5 is to constantly investigate your belief systems. Release and replace the unpreferred beliefs, fear-based beliefs, and the beliefs not in alignment with who you prefer to be. So this might just make perfect sense to some of you listening to this, but we're constantly evaluating our experience and how we see the world. When I first started learning about mindfulness and paying attention to my thoughts and my beliefs about things, I realized very quickly that a lot of my beliefs and judgments about people and places and things are just absolutely absurd. They're comical, like how easy it is to judge someone, don't judge a book by its cover. How many times have I done that? And, laughably learned that I was completely just off base. And even with myself, like taking myself too serious. There's too many examples to even cite, but you're going to want to update your belief systems and let go of fear and self-limiting beliefs. The easiest sort of example, in our modern sort of world is that our smartphones and computers and, now AI, artificial intelligence, are constantly being updated to work out the kinks and the bugs and to be more efficient, right? They're constantly doing that. And our brains, right? Our minds are the same way. We constantly must tidy up and fix the code so we can operate more efficiently. Now, if we don't, and I'm sure we all know some people that don't, they're just on autopilot, right? One of the more maybe funny terms, or maybe it's not that funny, but NPCs, non-player characters that we encounter in life where, their life is in some sense scripted. It's just, they're not evaluating their life. They don't update their belief systems. They happily judge whatever, and they're not going to change. That's just what it is. They are the opposite of being open-minded and receptive to diversity of thoughts and meeting people of different persuasions. And if that's how you want to roll, then that's fine, but you're going to severely limit your growth. So our brains are the same way, right? You don't go to the gym one time to get your body strong and increase the size of your muscles. You have to be very consistent and show up and be disciplined and work on your muscles day in and day out. Obviously you need a break here and there, but it's the same way with your thoughts and your beliefs and your values. Letting go of the things that are no longer serving you and strengthening the beliefs that do serve you. Why operate in fear when you can operate in courage? When you start to be intentional about that, you'll start to be able to bring in things into your life that are far more hopefully in alignment with your heart and what it is that you are calling in or that you want in your life. We all want good things in our life. We want to have good people in our life. Sometimes we have to reorganize some things. Sometimes people will fade away from our life, or maybe we recognize that we need to, find people that are more supportive or like-minded or, encouraging or compassionate, loving. If we could all be so lucky and abundant in that way to have, beautiful, loving people in our lives that support us no matter what, that aren't judging us and being critical and putting us down. What a lovely place, right? So paying attention to your mind and your thoughts, the quality of your thoughts, and also your emotions. How am I feeling? If I am not feeling great, then paying attention to how I can start to bring in more positive feelings and emotions in my life. So I guess getting to the end here, be non-judgmental and kind to yourself as you explore making changes in your life. We are like water. And I'm going to explain this because water is very important. But we are meant to be in flow. Water, and the energy of water, it's meant to be in flow. It's not meant to be stuck. And so when water does get stuck or it becomes trapped and it's not moving anymore, then it becomes, funky, things grow in it, bacteria starts to grow. It becomes unhealthy. And so we are mostly made of water, right? Our bodies are mostly made of water, and we're not naturally meant to be stuck. Our energy is not meant to be stuck. So if you find yourself stuck, these, the guide presented here, and there's any number of, perhaps things you can do, but really tuning in with yourself so that you keep moving and flow with life. But tuning into your own inner guidance system to know which way to move to get unstuck and what you need to do to get unstuck. So remember, every moment is a new moment to begin again. Every breath is a new breath. These are some words that I came across earlier today, and I want to share with you. And you can say these to you every day if it helps and they resonate with you to reprogram your mind. And it is as follows. This is from Neelam Serene, who is the quantum alchemist. But the mantra that she shares is, everything is happening for me. Source Creator loves me. I am loved by the universe. The universe is guiding me to the new earth. I am safe. I am held. I am supported. This is all happening for me. So keep these words in mind and say them early and often as they are helpful. And thank you so very much for listening to this show. And please like and subscribe if you got something out of it. I know I enjoyed sharing it. This was my highest excitement today. So be well. Thank you so much for tuning in today and being with us. May you find joy, flow, and adventure on your journey. And if you got something from it, please like, share, and subscribe and or comment. It means a lot. Thank you.